Jerry Mallory here for SB Nation and PrivateTrade.com. We have a pretty cool interview that we're going to play for you in just a second with Nolan Vasan from NFLDraftGeek.com. It's two parts. The first one, we're going to start off talking about our beloved Detroit Lions, and in a day or so, you'll get part two where we talk about the NFL Draft as a whole. We know this is the season. There's tons of opinions. These guys are pretty good. If you haven't checked them out before after this interview, I'm sure you will. So without any further delay, here's the interview.
All right, we want to welcome Nolan Vasan from NFLDraftGeek.com. Thanks for joining us on the show today. How's it going?
I'm doing real good, Jerry. Thank you for having me. We're just a little less than a month away from the draft, and I'm excited to join and get started.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time of year now. Before we get into our questions, why don't you tell the ones listening and viewing a little bit about the website and what you guys have been doing leading up to the NFL Draft?
Yeah, at NFLDraftGeek.com, you can check us out on Twitter as well. Everything is free. We try to get as little advertisements for you guys as possible. We got a draft up right now. Not too many people have a 3-rounder going. And we have a feature a lot of people like where you can actually create your own mock draft in our mock draft machine. So you don't like our mock draft, you can create your own for round 1. You can do a 7-round mock draft if you want, or you can do a 7-round mock draft just for the Lions if you want to do just your favorite team. So pick up the USAToday draft guide. We did a lot of work for that. But yeah, we're staying busy leading up to April 30th.
Cool. Go ahead and check them out. So we got a couple of questions to ask you. Won't take up too much of your time. We've got a couple of Lions questions, a few NFL ones. We'll start with the Lions. This is why most people listen and watch us. So starting off with them, as we know, the structure for the Lions has been under Martin Mayhew to go with the best player available in the early round. So, Nolan, name a couple of players who you think could fall to the 23rd pick that would fit that bill for Detroit.
Yeah, that's what makes projecting them so difficult. All it takes is one team to throw things off a little bit, and there the Lions are sitting with somebody they didn't expect to get. And I'll give you a few names of people you can keep an eye out for. One guy a lot of people aren't talking about being around with the Lions pick would be Landon Collins, the safety Alabama. Right now we do have him going 9 to the Giants, but if he doesn't go 9 to the Giants, there's a good chance I think he might be available based on just team needs. There's not a lot of teams picking in the teens that really need a safety. You might look at the Chargers or the Chiefs possibly, but he's a guy that I think if things don't go the way people expect, he could be there. And he's a prospect I really like, especially for the Lions he could fit in. He's more of a strong safety type. Ahead of Bo, you got him signed for 1 more year, but after that, it's a little bit up in the air. A couple more of the guys that not a lot of people are talking about would be the offensive tackles. Andrews P. out of Stanford, Lyle Collins out of LSU. You have the right tackle position in a little bit of flux with Waddle's injury. And there's been some talk that even the Lions might prefer to have Reif on the right side and eventually get a new guy on the left side. So that's a possibility. But right now in our mock draft, we've got him going with P.J. Williams out of Stanford, out of Florida State, who's a cornerback I really, really like. He's physical. He didn't run the greatest 40 time, but I think he's a lot faster with game speed than he is in his 40 time. So to me, just the way our mock draft is formulated right now, P.J. Williams is the best guy available, but keep an eye out for Collins or maybe one of those 2 offensive tackles as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, Collins especially, had a really good year for the Lions. Toward the end, kind of started slipping a little bit, and the strong safety is probably a need in terms of looking at the future. Like you said, James is just signed on for 1 more year, so appreciate that. Now, looking at some of the needs for the Lions, they do go best player available, but they are, a team that has quite a few needs. The way we look at it on the website, we've been looking at offensive line, particularly guard, but maybe even tackle, running back, cornerback, and defensive tackle. So, Nolan, which of these positions do you think the Lions need to address early in the draft? Maybe there isn't a ton of depth at this particular position, so they need to address it soon. And which position out of those mentioned do you think they can afford to wait in the later rounds? There'll be plenty of quality guys later on, the 6th, 7th rounds even.
Yeah, most definitely. Out of those positions you mentioned, the deepest ones would be running back and cornerback. In the end, in the first round, you're going to want to take the best available player. You want to take players, not positions. But if it's really a toss-up and you're considering a running back and then you've got a cornerback in the mix, let's say you're talking about a running back, everyone talks about Gurley and Gordon, but let's say you don't take one of those guys, you can still come back on day 2 and get a guy like Amir Abdullah, a Duke Johnson, and T.J. Yeldon will still be there in the second round. Even on day 3, you could get a guy like Jeremy Langford out of Michigan State will still be available. It's a deep class for running backs. Cornerbacks, it's the same deal. If you don't get P.J. Williams, or you're definitely obviously not going to get Trey Waynes, there's a lot of depth in this year's draft. You can get Josh Shaw out of USC. There's a lot of guys who you can get second, third, fourth, fifth round. So those, I think, would be the deepest positions. When you think about the defensive tackle spot, I didn't talk about that when we were just talking about best player available, because in both my mock drafts and my mock draft scenario, I got Malcolm Brown out of Texas and Jordan Phillips both off the board. And to me, that's not a good spot for the Lions, because after those two guys, I think there's really a bigger drop-off. I'm not a big fan of someone like Eddie Goldman out of Florida State, Carl Davis out of Iowa. He's a second-round pick, but he's a high-risk, high-reward guy. And then on day 3, there really isn't much depth to the class. So if you're a Lions fan who's really hoping they can pick up a defensive tackle, you better hope that Brown or Jordan Phillips is available, because after that, I think the class really falls off in that particular area.
All right, pretty interesting there. So, first day, even second day goes by, we don't hear a running back mentioned or a cornerback. According to Nolan, the guys at NFL Draft Geek still can get some quality players later on, maybe in day 3. So we talked about running back. You just mentioned how there is some depth. However, Todd Gurley, let's talk about him for a minute. Now, this fits the Mayhew bill in a lot of reasons. Best player available, certainly. There have been times where, because of injuries, guys have fallen. So the Lions said, hey, if we can get this guy healthy, he can go even earlier, like a Ryan Broyles, like a Javid Best. Didn't quite work out, but, Todd Gurley kind of fits the bill of someone the Lions would potentially draft. They brought him in for an interview, probably did a little bit of a physical as well. Give us your thoughts on Todd Gurley and his injury concerns, and then how would you rank him with Melvin Gordon? Those are probably the top 2 running backs, so there's a chance the Lions may have a choice between one of the two at 23.
Yeah, I'm very high on Todd Gurley, and I'm all aboard the bandwagon. If he's there, I think you got to take him, because I believe in him as a game changer, somebody who just completely shifts the focus of your offense and shifts the focus of the defense, too, particularly who they have to game plan for. On my board, he's the number 5 overall player. I believe in him that much. And if it wasn't for the injury,
Wow,
he'd be going in the top 10 to Atlanta or the Vikings at 11 or something like that. I really, it's just personal opinion. I mean, you mentioned those two guys, Broyles and Javid Best, that hasn't worked out. But with the way, the procedures have come a long ways in recent years, the knee injuries aren't as bad of a problem as they used to be. These guys come back quicker. They come back sometimes even stronger. And from all accounts, as you read the reports, Todd Gurley's rehab is ahead of schedule. So to me, as long as he's checked out, which he has, there hasn't been any red flags from the combine or anything like that, he's healthy, I'm fully on board with him. Not only does it fill a need for the Lions, obviously who rank towards the bottom of the league in yards per carry and yards per game, but I just think he's one of the best, biggest playmakers in this draft. And if he was in the draft last year, if they allowed him to come out in the draft as a sophomore, he would have been a top 10 pick. So at 23, if he's available, I'm all on board.
I like it. All aboard the Todd Gurley hype train. We'll be talking about him quite a bit in the next few weeks. Very interesting prospect. Like you said, man, if it wasn't for the injury, this wouldn't even be a question for the Lions at 23. He'd be gone. I think he's one of the better prospects, too, at running back to come out in quite some time. So good to hear a little confirmation from you on that.
Thanks again to Nolan Vasan from NFLDraftGeek.com. Like we said, check them out. Really good website. If you're a draft junkie like myself, and if you're on Private Troy, I know you are. It's a really good site to go to. Interesting points he made, and I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Landon Collins, this is a name we have not discussed a lot, but he could fit that best player available role, and it's a position that, although it is not an immediate need, strong safety, Hedebo, like you said, signed on for one more year. We started to see a little flaw in the Hedebo's game, taking bad angles and whatnot toward the end. And so this could be a person of interest for us. Haven't really talked about him. But give us your thoughts on the interview as a whole. Like I said, we did about a 15-minute interview. The second half talked about the NFL draft, not just Lions specific. We're going to post that one later on today or perhaps in a day or so. So stay tuned for that. And as always, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. And until next time, this has been Jerry Mallory for SB Nation and PrivateTrade.com.